In the early 17th century, the vast, mysterious lands of North America beckoned with promises of untold riches, new trade routes, and the expansion of English power. For many, it represented a chance for a new life, free from the strictures of the Old World. The Virginia Company of London, a joint stock company, spearheaded this ambitious venture, driven by both commercial gain and national prestige. But beneath the veneer of hopeful enterprise lay a harsh, untamed reality that would test the very limits of human endurance, pushing dreams of glory to the brink of utter collapse. On December 20, 1606, 3 small ships, the Susan Constant, Godspeed, and Discovery, departed England, carrying 104 male colonists and a handful of boys. The voyage across the vast Atlantic was a grueling ordeal, lasting over 4 months. Cramped conditions, meager rations, and the constant threat of storms tested their resolve even before they sighted land. These men, a mix of gentlemen, artisans, and laborious, harbored hopes for a prosperous future, unaware of the unimaginable hardships that awaited them in the unfamiliar wilderness they were sailing towards. In May 1607, after exploring the vast Chesapeake Bay, the colonists chose a peninsula on the James River for their settlement, naming it Jamestown in honor of King James I. The site was strategically defensible, surrounded by water on 3 sides, which they believed offered protection from potential Spanish attacks and local Native American tribes. However, this apparent advantage concealed a critical flaw: the land was swampy, prone to mosquito infestations, and its brackish water was unsuitable for drinking. This initial choice would prove to be a fatal miscalculation. The English colonists quickly discovered that the New World was far from the idyllic paradise they had envisioned. The Virginia climate presented extremes they were ill-prepared for: scorching summers and brutally cold winters. Their initial focus on searching for gold, rather than establishing sustainable agriculture or shelter, proved disastrous. Many were gentlemen unaccustomed to manual labor, and their collective lack of practical survival skills for this alien environment severely hampered their ability to adapt. The wilderness itself became their first, relentless adversary. The colonists were not alone in this land. They had intruded upon the established territory of the Powhatan Confederacy, a powerful and sophisticated alliance of Algonquian-speaking tribes led by their formidable paramount chief, Wahunson Acor, known to the English as Chief Powhatan. Numbering around 14,000 people across 30 tribes, the Powhatan viewed the English settlers with a mixture of suspicion, curiosity, and hostility. Initial interactions were tense, marked by skirmishes and cautious exchanges, setting a volatile precedent for the relationship that would define Jamestown's early years. Disease became a far more insidious and relentless enemy than any human adversary. The swampy location of Jamestown was a breeding ground for malaria-carrying mosquitoes. Contaminated river water, combined with poor sanitation, led to outbreaks of dysentery, typhoid, and other deadly infections. Within months of their arrival, the colonists began to die in alarming numbers. Weakened by malnutrition and unaccustomed to the local pathogens, they succumbed rapidly, turning the hopeful settlement into a graveyard. Sickness was a constant companion, a silent reaper thinning their ranks. Beyond disease, starvation loomed large. The colonists arrived too late in the season to plant adequate crops, and their efforts were often hindered by their own inexperience, the harsh soil, and hostile Native American raids. English provisions dwindled quickly, and their attempts to trade with the Powhatan were not always successful or peaceful. Their diet consisted mostly of corn, often acquired through uneasy trade, but as supplies ran out, they resorted to desperate measures, eating roots, berries, and even shoe leather. Hunger became a pervasive, agonizing reality. The sheer mortality rate in Jamestown's early years is staggering. Of the first 104 settlers, only 38 were alive by January 1608, less than a year after landing. Despite subsequent arrivals of new colonists, the death toll continued to climb dramatically. The starving time alone would later wipe out the vast majority of the population. This was not just a struggle, it was a massacre by disease, hunger, and conflict, illustrating the profound challenges of establishing a foothold in a truly wild and unwelcoming land without proper preparation or understanding. Compounding the external pressures were the internal struggles for leadership. The governing council was plagued by infighting, incompetence, and rapidly changing command. This instability meant that crucial decisions regarding survival, defense, and resource management were often delayed or poorly executed. Without a clear and consistent authority, the colony descended into further disarray, unable to present a united front against its manifold challenges. The absence of effective leadership amplified every other hardship, contributing directly to the high death rates. Amidst the chaos, one figure emerged as a decisive leader, Captain John Smith. Though often autocratic and controversial, Smith imposed a strict work ethic, famously declaring, "He that will not work, shall not eat." He implemented disciplined routines for food gathering, fortification building, and exploration. Crucially, Smith established a tense but vital trading relationship with Chief Powhatan, securing much-needed corn for the starving colonists. His pragmatic approach and stern discipline temporarily staved off complete collapse, providing a glimmer of hope in a desperate situation. The fragile stability achieved under Smith crumbled after his return to England in late 1609 due to an injury. The winter of 1609 to 1610 became known as the Starving Time, a period of unimaginable suffering. Without Smith's leadership and the Powhatan's willingness to trade, the colonists were besieged. Their food supplies dwindled to nothing, forcing them to eat horses, dogs, cats, rats, and even, horrifyingly, human corpses. Of the 500 colonists present in the autumn of 1609, only about 60 survived this horrific period, clinging to life by a thread. By May 1610, the survivors of the Starving Time were skeletal, desperate, and utterly demoralized. They made the agonizing decision to abandon Jamestown, boarding ships to return to England, convinced that their experiment in the New World was a catastrophic failure. However, fate intervened. As they sailed down the James River, they encountered a relief fleet led by Lord de la Warr, bringing fresh supplies, new colonists, and a new, uncompromising governor. This timely arrival saved Jamestown from certain collapse, but it marked a shift towards even stricter military rule. Jamestown desperately needed an economic purpose, a commodity that could justify the massive investment and loss of life. That salvation arrived in the form of tobacco, specifically through the innovative efforts of John Rolfe. The native Virginia tobacco was harsh and unpalatable to English tastes. However, Rolfe, in 1612, successfully cultivated a milder, sweeter strain from West Indies seeds, meticulously processing it for export. This new crop quickly became highly desirable in Europe, transforming the colony's bleak financial prospects overnight. The demand for Rolfe's sweet tobacco exploded in England, turning it into the colony's cash crop. This economic engine pulled Jamestown back from the brink. The vast profits incentivized the Virginia Company to send more settlers, including women, to establish families and build a permanent society. Tobacco cultivation, however, was labor-intensive and rapidly depleted the soil, necessitating constant expansion and a growing demand for land. This economic boom, while saving the colony, also set the stage for future conflicts and the development of new labor systems. Amidst the growing economic success, a brief period of fragile peace with the Powhatan Confederacy was forged through a remarkable alliance. In 1614, John Rolfe married Pocahontas, the daughter of Chief Powhatan. This union, seen by both sides as a strategic move, stabilized relations between the colonists and the powerful Native American tribes for several years, allowing Jamestown a crucial window of time to solidify its presence and expand its agricultural endeavors. This peace of Pocahontas was a vital factor in the colony's eventual survival. The peace, however, was ultimately temporary. The relentless demand for tobacco fueled an insatiable hunger for more land. As the English plantations expanded further into Powhatan territories, tensions inevitably rose. The Peace of Pocahontas ended with her death in 1617 and Chief Powhatan's death a year later. In 1622, Under the leadership of Powhatan's successor, Opechancanough, the Powhatan launched a devastating surprise attack, known as the Great Massacre of 1622, killing hundreds of colonists and sparking years of brutal warfare. The struggle for land would define the future of the colony. Even amidst war and hardship, Jamestown began to lay the foundations for future American society. In 1619, the Virginia Company convened the first representative assembly in English America, the House of Burgesses. This marked a monumental step toward self-governance, allowing colonists to have a voice in their local laws and taxes, albeit limited to landowning white men. It was a crucial, albeit nascent, experiment in democratic principles, establishing a precedent that would resonate throughout the subsequent centuries of American development and political thought. The same pivotal year, 1619, also marked another profoundly significant, and ultimately tragic, moment in American history. A Dutch privateer arrived at Point Comfort, carrying 20-odd enslaved Africans, who were traded for provisions. Initially, they were likely treated as indentured servants, similar to many European labourers, but their arrival laid the groundwork for the institutionalization of chattel slavery in English North America. This event cast a long, dark shadow over the colony's development, profoundly shaping its future and the destiny of a nation. Jamestown's story is a harrowing testament to human perseverance against overwhelming odds. It was a true crucible, where English ambition met the brutal realities of the New World. Starvation, disease, and relentless conflict with the Powhatan Confederacy nearly annihilated the settlement multiple times. Yet, through sheer grit, painful adaptation, and the unexpected economic boon of tobacco, the colonists clawed their way to permanence. Their survival was not a triumph of ease, but a victory born from profound suffering and immense sacrifice. More than just the first permanent English settlement, Jamestown laid the very foundation for what would become the United States. Its experiences with self-governance, economic enterprise, land expansion, and the tragic introduction of slavery, all deeply influenced the developing American identity. The lessons learned in survival, the struggles for freedom and prosperity, and the complex relationships forged with native peoples became indelible parts of the American narrative. Jamestown was not merely a starting point, it was a defining crucible where the nascent ideals and future conflicts of a nation first took root.